Hello everyone, welcome back to the Modern History series of World War I. In the previous video we talked about the Battle of Verdun in 1916, the Purgatory battle that dragged France to the brink of despair. Today we will continue to focus on 1916 and talk about another battle that completely rewrote modern warfare and is also the most brutal battle in human history, the Battle of the Somme. Did you not understand World War I? It's hard to imagine a bloody battle that lasted for over 4 months, with both sides investing millions of troops and the front line advancing less than 12 kilometers in the end. This is the craziest and most unsolvable truth of trench warfare. The origin of the story is simple. In 1916, the German army launched a fierce attack on Verdun, causing heavy casualties and almost collapse of the French army. In order to help France share the pressure and divert German troops and artillery from Verdun, the Anglo-French coalition decided to launch a large-scale frontal counterattack along the Somme River in the north. The entire battle plan was fully formulated by General Haig, the Commander-in-Chief of the British Expeditionary Force. It must be said here, Haig is a typical all-era cavalry general. His tactical thinking is very traditional, even stubborn. He always believed in a simple and crude logic. As long as I used enough artillery fire to level the enemy's position and then let the infantry charge in unison, I would definitely break through the German defence line and turn the tide in one fell swoop. For this decisive battle, the Anglo-French coalition gathered a total of 32 divisions, nearly 6,000 troops, and brought in 3,500 artillery pieces. Haig's plan was straightforward: to use 7 days of uninterrupted shelling to blow up all the German trenches, fortifications and troops. After the artillery fire ends, the infantry charges forward along the entire line, directly breaking through the defence line and advancing in depth, quickly ending the battle. But he made a fatal mistake, seriously underestimating the defensive capabilities of the German army. The German army has been painstakingly managing their positions on the Somme River for 2 whole years. This is not a temporary trench, but a 3-dimensional super defense system. The German army dug 3 deep trenches filled with reinforced concrete bunkers and machine gun emplacements. The most crucial thing is that all the main German soldiers are hiding in deep underground bunkers. Ordinary artillery bombardment cannot harm them in the slightest. On June 24th, 1916, the craziest shelling in history officially began. For a full 7 days, the Anglo-French coalition poured over 1.5 million shells at the German positions on the Somme River. The scene on site can be called the apocalypse. The earth continued to tremble and the entire battlefield was completely shrouded in black smoke and gunpowder, with almost zero visibility. In the eyes of everyone, after this level of bombing, it is impossible for the German army to still have living people, and all their fortifications have already been completely destroyed. General Haig was convinced at the time that as long as the infantry charged forward, they could easily occupy the position and hardly encounter any resistance. But what happened next became the darkest and bloodiest day in British military history. From July 1st, 1916 at 7:30 am, the 7-day-long artillery fire suddenly came to a halt. 100,000 British soldiers climbed out the bunker trench in an orderly manner. They strictly followed the tactical formation, lined up in neat horizontal lines, and walked step by step towards the no man's land between the two armies. Most of the soldiers were new recruits, and they were filled with the belief that the German army had already been completely destroyed by the bombing, and that this was just an easy occupation operation. But just as the British army reached the centre of the no man's land, completely exposed to open terrain, the silent German positions suddenly heard a dense barrage of machine gun sounds. The tone of the Maxim machine gun instantly engulfed the entire no man's land. Originally, during the 7 days of relentless bombing, German soldiers remained safely in deep underground bunkers. As soon as the artillery fire stopped, they quickly climbed to the top and entered the machine gun position, ready for battle. This next scene is so cruel that it's suffocating. The neatly advancing British soldiers, without any cover, fell in patches like harvested wheat. The people in the front row fall down, and the people in the back row can only continue to charge forward. Why not retreat? Because in the military law of the British Army at that time, retreating before the battle was the death penalty. They had no choice but to charge towards machine gun bullets, bang, in just one day. The British suffered as many as 6,000 casualties, of which 2,000 were killed on the spot. This is the record for the heaviest daily casualties since the establishment of the British Army, which has never been broken. Many entire infantry battalions were wiped out in just a few minutes. John McCrae, the military doctor who witnessed the massacre, wrote a heart-wrenching passage in his diary. "I have never seen such a terrifying scene before, with corpses piled up like mountains and the earth soaked in blood. Looking around, it is a scene of devastation." After paying such a painful and almost devastating price, the Anglo-French coalition only advanced less than 3 kilometers along the entire line. Anyone would most likely pause their attack and adjust their tactics, but Haig didn't. He still adhered to his original tactics and continued to order repeated charges. In the next 4 months, the same tragedy will unfold day after day. The coalition armies' wave after wave of human attacks only resulted in massive casualties. The speed of progress on the entire front line is unbelievably slow, only advancing a few meters per day. Just as this endless war of attrition reached a stalemate, the war pattern of World War I ushered in a historic turning point. On September 15, 1916, tanks officially stepped onto the stage of human warfare for the first time. Many people are curious about the origin of the name of the tank. Here is a cold knowledge. In order to deceive German spies and strictly keep this new weapon confidential, the British Army lied to the outside world that these large equipment transported to the front line were just military war storage tanks, pronounced as tank in English. This code name was passed down and became the official name of the tank. The first batch of tanks put into the battlefield by the British Army consisted of 49 vehicles. But due to poor mechanical performance in the early stages and frequent malfunctions, only 18 of them successfully arrived at the frontline battlefield. But it was these 18 steel behemoths that completely shook the German army. The soldier at that time had never seen such a weapon before. It is not afraid of rifle and machine gun bullets, can easily crush barbed wire, directly cross trenches, and continuously suppress German positions with vehicle-mounted artillery and machine guns. All conventional weapons of the German army are completely ineffective against it. This unknown steel monster caused great psychological panic and tactical pressure to the German army. With the cover of tanks, the British Army directly advanced 5 kilometers in a single day, achieving the largest victory since the start of the Battle of the Somme. Unfortunately, the shortcomings of the first generation tanks were too fatal. It has a speed of only 6 kilometers per hour, not much faster than walking, and is extremely prone to breaking down, malfunctioning and collapsing. A large number of tanks were stuck in the center of the battlefield, unable to move, and were eventually destroyed by German artillery fire. So even though tanks appeared and brought new technical ideas, they still couldn't reverse the stalemate of the entire battle. In November, the cold winter descended upon the Somme River. Rainstorm, mud and cold completely sealed the battlefield, and both sides lost their offensive ability completely. This long, bloody battle was finally forced to end. Let's take a look at a set of cold and cruel final data. After more than 4 months of fierce fighting, the Anglo-French coalition suffered a total of 620,000 casualties, including 42,000 British soldiers and 2,000 French soldiers. The German army suffered 45,000 casualties. The million-strong armies of both sides fought bloody battles, and the ultimate result was only that the coalition forces advanced less than 20 kilometers forward. This is the most absurd and cruel truth of trench warfare in World War I. The battles of Somme and Verdun became synonymous with the First World War, symbolizing endless consumption, senseless sacrifice, and the cold and cruel nature of industrial warfare. To this day, this battle remains highly controversial. Many people denounced General Haig as a battlefield butcher, accusing him of sticking to old tactics, ignoring the lives of soldiers, and using the blood of countless young people to exchange for a few kilometers of insignificant and strategically worthless land. Think. But many military historians also believe that under the tactical system, weapons and equipment and war pattern at that time, Haig had already made the best choice he could. However, regardless, the Battle of Somme completely ended an old era of warfare. It proves with bloody lessons that the traditional human foot infantry charge tactics are completely outdated and ineffective. The appearance of tanks officially opened a new chapter in modern mechanized warfare, completely changing the form of warfare for the next century. In 1916, during World War I, the bloody battles on land were extremely brutal, and the ultimate showdown at sea was about to unfold. In the next episode, we'll jump out of the trenches and move to the North Sea to take you through the largest battleship battle of World War I, the Battle of Jutland. How did this naval battle completely end the era of battleships and firmly secure the Allied naval supremacy? Like and subscribe, we will reveal the answer in the next issue.